At the beginning of this year, when it became apparent that CCL's work was going to focus in a good deal on the elections, we set up an elections team to address candidates as well as getting out the vote efforts. Our first work during the primaries was focused on meeting candidates, and there were lots of them at the beginning of the year. It was really interesting in hearing where they were on climate, and I think the most fun part was when several of the candidates asked us for information and a little bit of help to bring them up to speed. That was part of that developing the relationship that is so important to CCL's work.
This was the first time I'd had the opportunity to speak with the actual candidates for Congress. So I felt like, yeah, I'm in the right place. I'm working with a team that is actually engaged with the candidates to find out what their positions are on climate and to share our thoughts in a limited fashion about climate. We did a few conversations in advance of the primaries, and then after the primaries, we had more in-depth conversation. One interesting thing was that we were able to talk to candidates of both parties. Both parties in this congressional election were open to having conversations with us. We could start by just having a general lighthearted conversation about who they were and what their goals were in running for office. And as a bipartisan group, we could come together with an open mind and listen thoughtfully to their perspective without offering anything contrary. Just we were there to listen, and then we were there to share. Once we realized that both candidates were really open to hearing what we had to say and respected the fact that we had some knowledge that they did not have, we had productive conversations. To me, this was inspiring. It's the kind of thing that helps me get fired up for climate action. I love the fact that I'm doing it collectively with other like-minded people. And I felt like we were really an effective group. It was the first time I had worked with this group. It was the first time I had done really a targeted action with CCL. So it was a bit of an adventure for me. I'd been in 3 prior climate groups, each of which had its own strengths and weaknesses, but none of them had the effectiveness, and I felt sort of almost the expertise of the people in this CCL group. So that was really satisfying for me. Our group leader was terrific. She knew how to lead a group. She listened very carefully. She worked on consensus, so she was terrific. And the other people in the group clearly had experience working on issues together as a group and knew how to coordinate, how to listen to each other. So it was just a very satisfying process.
The other area that we put focus on in the general election was the get out the vote efforts, the phone banking with the Environmental Voter Project. And we encouraged our members over and over to get involved. And then we held a sort of a North Carolina come to the Environmental Voter Project phone banking evening, and had a really good turnout for that. Another one of our efforts was yard signs, which was just an idea that arose among us, and we saw how successful other messages have been for yard signs. CCL National created the messaging, and so we had yard signs that were double-sided. It was very well received. And one of the happy things, I think, was that this effort really gave members of our chapter who are not very engaged, they had something to do and a connection with our chapter. And I actually received some really nice notes from people that I don't know, but they were very appreciative that we were doing this. Another area that we worked on was of course the Earth Day election edition events. And we had several different tabling events. One of them that we actually created at the Museum of Life and Science. So we're building a relationship with them, and they were willing to give us a whole Saturday. So we combined it with some efforts that the youth team were doing. The youth team put together a voter encouragement video. They're not of age to vote, so they were asking adults to come out and vote. We had that playing. We had a youth had made a poster to that effect to encourage people to vote because they can't. And then we had information from various sources, including a very active voting organization called You Can Vote in North Carolina, and we had their materials out. So that was also a relationship building with them.
I decided that I wanted to do something and be part of the change. I found a group of teens who also wanted to be part of the change. CCL has taught me that youth like me have a voice through talking with their senators and educating people on the climate crisis.
So I encourage you to reflect on how climate change is impacting the future of you and your family, and to make climate change a priority issue when you vote this fall.
I'm advocating for climate because of the rising stakes. And while I may not be able to vote yet, I hope you'll join me in the fight to conserve the planet and make your voice heard through environmentally conscious voting this year.
Having an elections team really helped build our chapter in a lot of ways. We had people who had experience with CCL on the team, as well as people who are brand new. The feedback from the newer people was that this was a great way to jump in and feel like they were really taking action and getting to know how CCL works in an organized way. We met just about weekly, very consistently. Then when we needed to tap into the broader chapter membership, we did through having more people join us for candidate meetings, tabling events, and all the work that went into yard sign distribution, and just the people who said, yes, I'd like to buy a yard sign. So in lots of ways, we were able to broaden the work, but have a core team really guiding the effort. And that worked really, really well for us.